2004.
Once, Chris Brown was a major league star.
Base hit.
In fact, he was an all-star.
In the air to deep left field, and Brown, in his second year with the Giants, in his first all-star game, has a double.
Now, Chris Brown's life is very different.
He needs some more field in this one.
And very far from the majors.
I've had mortars shot at me, RPGs, gunshots. You know, some guys have had hand grenades thrown at them.
He works in Iraq as a civilian contractor, driving fuel trucks, often a very visible target.
They're just as susceptible to violence as the soldiers are.
We thank you for bringing Chris home safely, and we thank you in advance for bringing him back again.
Today outside the lines, Chris Brown's journey from the diamond to the desert.
Outside the Lines is presented by State Farm. And now reporting, Bob Lee.
It remains perhaps the most bizarre injury reported in baseball history. Chris Brown, back in the 1980s, missed a game with what his manager called a strained eyelid. That's how much of baseball remembers this player, who was a starter in the bigs at the age of 23 and who doubled and scored a run the last time the All-Star game was played in Houston. A generation later, Chris Brown has put himself in the middle of a volatile, dangerous situation by his own choice. With his Major League Baseball career a distant memory, he is now a civilian contractor working to supply coalition forces traveling the dangerous roads of Iraq.
Of all the players I ever managed, he'd be probably the last one I'd pick to be doing something like he's doing.
To be honest, I really don't care. You know, as long as my wife and my kids are making them happy and they believe in me, I care less what anybody else, believe in or think of me.
Next, how a one-time All-Star, whom some in the game said could not step up when it counted, is now working in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Part of the rich baseball heritage in South Central Los Angeles. Eric Davis, a two-time All-Star, carved out a 17-year career of skill and courage, returning from cancer. Ozzie Smith, arguably the greatest defensive shortstop in the game's history, a first-ballot Hall of Famer with 92% of the vote. And Darryl Strawberry, an epic figure of fame and despair through 17 seasons. Strawberry and Chris Brown were teammates at Crenshaw High School, a team of legendary skill and promise. Brown had his time in the show, and as Lisa Salters shows us, he's moved on from there to work where few men dare.
Your travel is to Kuwait, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Both of you. Frankfurt, Kuwait.
Can you shorten the trip?
I wish.
For 42-year-old Chris Brown, the hardest part of going to work is saying goodbye to his family.
Getting close. Lufthansa requests all passengers on flight RH4412 Frankfurt.
Okay.
All passengers.
A former major leaguer, Brown has gone on long road trips before. But none took him as far away from his home as his current job does, to the war-torn deserts of Iraq.
And probably the first few minutes I'm on the flight that I was thinking about, but once I get up there, I know I'm going back to Iraq to do a job.
Where you want him to stop at?
Since September, Brown has been employed by the private contractor Halliburton. Seen here in Kuwait, he has spent the majority of his assignment in Iraq.
He needs some more field in this one.
He currently inspects fuel trucks, but for the first several months of his job, he drove those trucks from military base to military base throughout the Iraqi countryside.
I've had mortars shot at me, RPGs, gunshots. Some guys have had hand grenades thrown at them, IEDs blown up around them, but, we're pretty much well protected by the military.
What's an IED?
It's like a bomb.
And an RPG?
It's a rocket-propelled grenade.
It's not a big difference, as far as I can understand, between him and the soldiers, well, as far as them traveling from base to base and going through the civilian towns. They're just as susceptible to violence as the soldiers are.
From March 2003, when the war began, through this June, 41 Halliburton employees have been killed in Iraq, In April, truck driver Thomas Hamill was kidnapped by Iraqi insurgents and held hostage for 3 weeks before he was able to escape. Brown drove on 2 convoys with him.
Hamill. Thomas.
And I felt for him, you know, because I feel for anybody that works for Halliburton, any truck driver that gets out there and drive up and down them roads. But as far as his safety, you know, I just prayed for him. That's all I could have done for him.
Brown says he knew the risks involved when he applied for the job last August. Prior to that, he had been a crane operator at construction sites and out of work for 5 months.
As the crane business slows down, my next door neighbor, his job had slowed down, and me and it was on the computer working, looking one day, and he noticed that Halliburton was hiring. So we took our resumes and sent them in, and, you know, the next thing you know, we were going to Iraq.
Come to a point where you have to find employment, and that's what was available. And once we weighed everything, you know, felt like it was a good move.
In Iraq, blue-collar jobs can earn a 6-figure salary. Though he won't reveal his specific salary, Brown says his benefits are excellent and his income tax-free.
The number 2 hitter in the National League. He started this afternoon batting .336. Base hit.
During his 6-year Major League career, Brown played for 3 teams, the Giants, Padres, and Tigers. The third baseman from Los Angeles, who was a high school teammate of Darryl Strawberry's, was called up by San Francisco in 1984. In 1986, his second full season in the big leagues, Brown was selected to the National League All-Star team.
In the air to deep left field, and going back is Mosby to play it off the wall. And Brown, in his second year with the Giants and his first All-Star game, has a double.
But despite his initial success on the field, Brown was often criticized for not spending enough time on it. From 1984 to 1989, Brown missed more than 250 games with injuries, ranging from a broken hand to a bruised tooth. He soon became the butt of jokes in his own clubhouses, picking up nicknames like Chris Downtime Brown and the Tin Man, who didn't have a heart.
He had a lot of injuries, and sometimes you didn't really know if he was hurt or not. That was the only thing that bothered me and sometimes my trainers, because they'd come to me and they'd say, I don't know if he's really hurt or not, but you know, then if he'd tell you, I can't play, then you want somebody to play that really wants to play bad.
Roger Craig managed Brown when he played for the San Francisco Giants.
He had Hall of Fame ability, because he had the great tools like all the great players have. I don't think he had the desire and determination and the want to that the other ones had.
There were times where I can understand I could have been a butthole, as simple as that. But the majority of the time, there was times where baseball, I thought that baseball did me injustice, and I just was going to be hard-headed about it. You don't believe in me, so I don't believe in you.
Of all the players I ever managed, he'd be probably the last one I'd pick to be doing something like he's doing.
What do you think that those people who were doubting you then, what would they say about what you're doing now?
To be honest, I really don't care. You know, as long as my wife and my kids, I'm making them happy and they believe in me, I care less what anybody else, you know, believe in or think of me.
If he was, in fact, carried those qualities that they spoke of, he is totally just, I don't know that person at all. At all.
I didn't go to Iraq to prove nothing to anybody. I went out there because it was a chance to work and also make good money for my family.
Brown's contract with Halliburton ends in September. Until then, he says he'll pass the time in Iraq the way he always has, with a lot of hard work and daily calls home.
That daily phone call, what does that mean to you?
Oh, my gosh. That's my reassurance. That's my reassurance that he is still okay.
That's good.
Since taking the job in Iraq, Brown has been able to return home to his family twice.
But most of all, God, we thank you for bringing Chris home safely, and we thank you in advance for bringing him back again. Yes.
Shortly, Brown will decide whether to sign up for another year in harm's way, far from his family.
What happens at the end of the year? Are you going to sign again to keep doing it?
And like I keep saying, I guess it's something the Lord has a plan for me. And that's all I can say is he has a plan, And whatever that plan is for Chris Brown, he would show me when he wants me to stop and when he wants me to come back.
Lisa Salters reporting. Because so many civilian contractors have quit in Iraq, Chris Brown is back in country actually driving the trucks, not just inspecting them, hoping to provide for his family and, of course, stay safe. To consider Chris Brown and his South Central baseball roots, we say hello to Brooks Hurst. He coached Chris Brown and Darryl Strawberry on that remarkable 79 Crenshaw High team from which 11 players were taken in the baseball draft. Michael Sokoloff is the author of The Ticket Out, Darryl Strawberry and the Boys of Crenshaw, the story of that team and the reality of life in South Central L.A. John Young grew up there. He made it to the majors and later established the RBI program to return baseball to the inner city. Gentlemen, all thank you. Brooks, when you coached Chris Brown, a lot of folks said, a lot of players on that team said, according to Michael's book, he was the best player, even with Strawberry there, best player on the team. You and he were kind of oil and water. What do you make of what he's doing now?
Well, I respect what he's doing now. Chris is one to take care of his family, and like he said, he'll do whatever it takes to provide for his family and provide for his future.
Michael, you write about all these boys of Crenshaw and the pathology of the inner city that has claimed some of them and keeps some of them there. The guy you visited in your book was in Houston, had made it out, had beaten some of the odds.
Well, Chris had beaten a lot of the odds and made it all the way up to big league baseball, and didn't have a career that was satisfying to him or to some others. But the thing that struck me about Chris and getting to know him is how much he loved baseball. I mean, Chris and all these guys from that 1979 team just loved the game and didn't need on any level to be persuaded to play it.
Yeah, they chewed tobacco. They watched This Week in Baseball. They knew everything about the game. This is back in the late 70s. Brooks, when you were coaching there in the inner city in L.A., how conscious were you perhaps even then about the issue that black American participation in this sport was starting to wane?
Well, I was very conscious about that. Crenshaw had a tremendous basketball program, and I was constantly trying to recruit basketball players during the off season to come out and participate in my program. They had a lot of boys who played basketball, and when their season was over, they would continue in the off-season programs instead of coming out with me.
So it was an issue for you even then?
Oh, big issue. Now,
getting African-American kids into the national pastime, it's a numbers game. They're going to play the futures game today in Houston. Only 4 black American players playing for the U.S. side. And you want to take a look at some other numbers. I'll put some on the screen. Just as a percentage of rosters, 30 years ago, 27% black American players, now down to 10%. And as far as the All-Stars are concerned, 30 years ago, 16 black American All-Stars, 7 in 02, 11 this year. So, John Young, you who run the RBI program and established this program, where is this trend heading now?
Well, I think Major League Baseball is doing some fantastic programs and getting kids back playing baseball. With the RBI program, they've got the Rookie League program, and what's really exciting is Major League Baseball is going to do the first urban academy in Compton, California, similar to the academies that they have in the Dominican Republic. So I think these are great steps toward addressing the issue.
Where are the fruits, and how far are we from seeing the fruits of this at the AAA Major League level?
Well, I think one thing you have to realize is that baseball has changed as far as professional. I scouted for 25 years, and when I played pro ball, there were many minor league clubs. With the economics of baseball now, many clubs don't have as many minor league clubs. Consequently, most of the players that we're signing are coming from the colleges. That's in the United States. So the first thing we have to address is getting more African-American kids to play college baseball.
Michael, you spent a great deal of time in South Central working on your book. You have a marvelous phrase in your book about these kids in '79. You said they played with a, quote, angry desperation. What did you mean?
Well, they saw baseball as a way out. They saw it as a way to sort of join the rest of America and better themselves economically and sort of join this game that Jackie Robinson opened up to black America, and they saw it as America's game. And it wasn't a foreign game to them. And I think, John just mentioned college baseball. Well, college baseball is just almost a lily-white environment. And I think what happens now is when somebody loves baseball and they're from the inner city, they go out to college baseball, or really almost any baseball, and they find it to be a very white environment. So even if they're interested in the game, they at some point get the message that it's not their game once they get to a higher level. And these kids from Crenshaw felt very strongly that it was their game. Their fathers had played it, their grandfathers had played it. They were very invested in it in a way. And now I think what Black Americans are up against is playing a sport that feels like a suburban sport to them. And I know John's working on that, but I'm sure it's a difficult battle.
John, with Tiger Woods, of course, dominating golf, the Williams sisters in tennis, previously all-white enclaves. What about that message that Michael speaks about, that black kids now get that baseball is a white sport? With these other accomplishments by these other athletes, wouldn't that encourage some of them to say, you know, baseball's worth a shot?
Well, I think we have to focus on things that we're doing. One thing that I'm really excited about, the recent Tournament of the Stars held in Joplin, Missouri. That's probably one of the most prestigious amateur 18 and under programs going, and the RBI team, the national RBI team, came 3 outs away from winning the gold medal. It's as far as we advance. We've had a player on that team, a shortstop by the name of Justin Upton, who is on pace to be one of the top players drafted next year in the free agent draft. And I think we have these role models. We just have to publicize them and let people know where they are.
That's a good point, John. I think pro basketball has done a wonderful job in the last 15 years of getting their sport to the boys in the inner city to let them know that there's opportunity there for them.
Exactly, and I think Major League Baseball have some bright people that are doing things. We mentioned the future game earlier that I believe is being played today in Houston. Well, Jimmy Lee Solomon and Sandy Alderson, they're the one that adopted that concept, and these are the people that are going to be running the U.S. Academy. So you've got some bright people that are addressing these issues in Major League Baseball.
But the numbers trend, John, 10% of the roster is just for black Americans today. Yes, baseball has changed. Yes, more guys are signed and don't make it perhaps than in any other sport. But at what point do you see some sort of an uptick in these numbers at the major level?
Well, again, it gets back to we've got to get kids playing in college. I mean, that's where our kids are coming from. Economically, it's just too difficult, I think, for many scouts to make major investment in high school players now. You just don't have enough teams. And since we're going through the colleges, we have to get more kids playing college ball. I mean, one thing that was great about Crenshaw, and I've always said with the RBI program, the most important people are the coaches. Well, you know, Brooks is an exceptional talent. He got the kids. The kids at Crenshaw, when Brooks was there, played year-round. Baseball is such a skill-specific sport. You must play it. Brooks had a great relationship with Willie West, who's one of the finest basketball coaches around. So basically at Crenshaw High School, so there was a relationship where these fine athletes that played basketball were also encouraged, you know, to play baseball, which was established by the baseball and basketball coach.
And when Brooks was coaching, Brooks, you sometimes would have 24 scouts at a game. Admittedly, you had an exceptional team. If I were to go to a high school game now in greater L.A. or in South Central L.A., how many scouts might I see?
Well, it'd be rare to see scouts over there this time. They don't usually want to go into the inner city.
Now, Michael, your title of your book is The Ticket Out. Should kids now in the inner city consider baseball the ticket out?
Well, I think that they certainly could, to the extent that you could consider any kind of sport a ticket out. The odds are long. The odds are probably a little bit better in baseball if you're a top athlete, because baseball needs top athletes. Now, I wanted to go back on something. I think an overlooked part of all of this is the decline of Ken Griffey's career. John mentioned role models. I think Ken Griffey was going to be a figure like Jordan or like Tiger Woods. And there's no one in baseball like that right now. And Barry Bonds does not really serve that role. I don't see anybody wearing Bonds jerseys in the inner city, but you did see people wearing Ken Griffey jerseys. And maybe if baseball had that kind of, you know, captivating black superstar, the momentum could go back in that direction.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Junior tweaked his hamstring just yesterday. Probably not going to be. We'll see if he's going to be in the All-Star game. Gentlemen, thanks so much. Brooks Hurst, Michael Sokoloff, John Young, thank you for all getting up early with us in the Pacific time zone. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Next, the Hall of Fame case for Fred McGriff, who's sitting on 493 home runs. Should 500 make it automatic? Outside opinion when we continue. Outside the Lines. The case of Fred McGriff of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, who's sitting on 493 career home runs, DHing and pinch hitting this year. 20 major leaguers have reached 500 career homers. All of them are either in the Hall of Fame or acknowledged to be heading for Cooperstown. Is McGriff an automatic Cooperstown selection? Outside opinion from our toll-free voicemail.
Any man that can play for 6 different teams and actually have an impact on all 6 teams deserves to be in, especially with his class.
As far as the 500 Club is concerned,
I think that the benchmark has to be raised to get people into the Hall of Fame for 500 home runs or more. In an era, Fred McGriff, for instance, I don't think belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think it's more and more people are hitting 500 home runs now. That's really shouldn't be the standard anymore.
Longevity is very important, and that you look at the end of a career, Hank Aaron also had a very bad last year, as Mickey Mellon did. So don't hold that against the person for longevity.
On ESPN.com, search OTL to send us email or sign up for our daily program alert. To make your opinion heard on the air or voicemail at 866-ESPN-OTL, and that is toll-free. We're standing by for the sports reporters, but first our ESPN 25 countdown